G'day Poetry Geeks, I'm Jackson and you are watching The Poetry Show. And in today's Poetry Show I wanted to talk to you about a poem from Ali Cobby Eckermann's collection Little Bit Long Time. The poem itself is called Untitled. But I want to talk to you very briefly about why I wanted to talk about this poem first. I was reading this essay in the London Book Review today that someone had shared on Twitter and I came across. And basically the argument of this whole essay was that poetry always fails because the thing that drives a poet to write a poem in the first place, whatever experience or feeling or observation it is that they have had, that they have felt moved enough to, try and commit to a poem, it always fails in its representation in a poem. There's something about language, there's something about putting words on paper which can never quite capture the essence of what moved the poet to write what they were going to write in the first place. And I can see the line of thought in that. There's something a bit kind of Lacanian, if you like, about it. This idea that language is a foreign language, that it needs us to involve ourselves in a symbolic order, that it's essentially a facade that doesn't actually tap into our core beliefs or our core emotions or feelings or desires or however you want to express that. So I could see where that was coming from, and I kind of understood what the essayist was trying to say. But while I was reading the essay, while I was reading this quite long essay, I kept having this thought pop into my head, and it was inspired by this particular poem. And the reason it was inspired by this poem is I happen to think the poem I'm about to share with you is perfect. It's a 100% perfect poem. And I don't say that very often. In fact, I'm not sure I've ever said it at all. And the reason I think it's perfect is because I think it does, at least to my mind, capture whatever it was that drove Ali Cobby Eckermann to write this poem in the first place. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I get the sense from reading the poem, at least, that it's true. I think that counts for something. So I'm going to quickly hold the poem up to you so you can read it for yourself. Try and zoom in. And I just want to quickly read it as well. So, like I said, it's called Untitled. The pink and grey galah lies dead on the bitumen. Grey bitumen lies dead under galah pink sky. And that's it, that's the poem. Now, why do I say that's a perfect poem? Well, firstly, this poem comes from a collection that was first published, I think, in about 2009. And I was given it as a present from an ex-Year 12 student of mine. So this Year 12 student was leaving school, and because I was their English teacher, they wanted to give me this book. And I read it in 2012 for the first time, so 3 years ago. And in reading an essay today, I remembered this poem. I think about this poem often. It's one of those rare pieces of poetry that just stays with you. It sears itself into your mind and you carry it with you forever. And I think for a poet to achieve that with so few words, I mean, I'm going to quickly count them just as though this were a word game. In just 18 words, Ali Cobby Eckermann wrote something that has seared itself into my mind for the last 3 years, and I'm confident will remain there for a very long time afterwards. So if that isn't a perfect poem on its own, then I don't know what is. But I wanted to unpack it a little bit further. I wanted to, because you might be reading that and thinking, what, that's not even, a poem. So I wanted to kind of talk it through as to why I think it's perfect. And I know in so doing, I am going to kill it, and I'm going to ruin it, and I'm going to spoil it for you. So do yourself a favour and stop watching this video now. But you're still with me, so you're a sucker. Firstly, the thing that I really like about this, it really speaks to a kind of attitude in poetry that really comes from Ezra Pound and Hilda Doolittle, and this idea of imagism, this idea of having clean, precise imagery in your poetry that doesn't rely on flowery, superfluous description, where the metaphors are incisive and apt, and they just drill through all of the layers of misunderstanding that can be brought into it with more kind of superfluous, kind of flowery language, and it just really gets to the core of the thing that is being expressed. So I think in kind of shaving away all of this unnecessary language, firstly, and just providing us with this snapshot, the poem does an excellent job of, you know, giving us this kind of imagistic poem. That said as well, there's also something about it that, to me, it has the feel of a haiku. I know it's not a haiku. It has the feel of a haiku in that it has that kind of snapshot quality, and it provides that juxtaposition, and there is a turning point within it. In fact, Saturday's How to Write Poetry series continuation is about haiku, so I've already made that video, and I know I'm saying stuff I've already said before, but that idea of juxtaposition of two images, you know, the bitumen and the galah, and the pared down, you know, almost kind of brutal poetic nature of it, you know, just taking away every word that you didn't need. That in there is just phenomenal. But there's this wonderful reversal in the poem. It takes your perception of the thing that's being seen, notably this grey and pink galah that's dead on the bitumen, this dead bird basically on the road, okay? So we see a dead bird on the road, and what Ali Cobby Eckermann does is flip our perspective on that in that second stanza, where everything else, it's kind of like we look at, you know, bird, bitumen, deadness, and then she flips it to deadness of the road, the kind of vitality of the bird is still somehow kind of within it, and then above it, this magnificent pink sky. Just that complete inversion of our perception of something so kind of ordinary and banal. And I mean, I get chills thinking about that. I can't put into words what this poem has put into my brain, because like the essay said, it's impossible. And yet I feel like, having read this incredibly short 18-word poem, that Ali Cobby Eckermann experienced something in seeing that. And I don't know if what she conveyed to me is what she intended to convey to me. I mean, that's always the question that we don't know the answer to when we look at a poem on a page. We're always going to have that question, we're always going to have that tension. And yet I feel in my bones and seared into the kind of wet pulsing matter of my brain that I get it, that I get that reversal, I get that kind of that change in perception, and I just think it's amazing. I think the clarity and the crispness of that and the way that that is expressed is phenomenal. So as you can tell, I quite like this poem, but I mean, really, words fail me to express exactly what it is about this poem that's so phenomenal. But I think if you read it and read it again, and then read it again and read it again, and you allow it to just sear itself into your brain the way I have, you will be a better person for it, and you will look at the world in a slightly different way. And I just think there's, I don't know, I don't want to say any more. I mean just wow, what a poem, what a poem. Oh man. No, but seriously, it's anyway. So thanks for watching, I guess. But more importantly, thank you to Ali Cobby Eckermann for writing that poem. And like I said, look, this whole collection, A Little Bit Long Time by Ali Cobby Eckermann. You need to read it. If you haven't read it, you just need to read it. I mean, they're not all that short, but they all pack a punch. I mean, really, I could have picked anything out of here, but I wanted to pick the almost the shortest, and just because whatever. I'm babbling.